So I have one package, two non-anime things to cover. That's the Sakura Chronicles Seasons 1 and 2. Just because I might as well finish up collecting Terminator stuff while I can. Although technically it's already out of date since Terminator 5 is in theaters. Blah. Here's this week's anime, except for these. I guess I'll deal with those in a little bit. So, let's just go through. We got Pokemon XY Series 24 action-packed episodes. Collection 1. Unfortunately, I don't even stand a chance at being able to name these Pokemon, even though these are the starters. I really ought to play the games. And what's this? Manga. That's pretty cool. Next up, we've got Space Brothers. They're two brothers in space. Collection 4. And of course, Sentai has done that thing. Ooh, that broke nice and easily. Stuck on this corner. There we go. So, now that we're at the back of it, let's see. Region A, subtitled only, as everything else has been. Pretty straightforward discs. And same pretty straightforward discs. Next up, we've got, I think this is Turn-A-Gundam, Volume 2. I can't even get this to focus. Come on, camera. Come on, camera. Turn-A-Gundam. What does that say? Gundam called Turn-A-Gundam? What? I don't know. I really gotta watch this. I have all this Gundam to watch, don't I? I've been not catching up on that. I'm falling behind. Damn it. Oh well. At least I have it on DVD. Turn-A-Gundam, I think that's an important one to get. Because it's a strange one and people like it. I think for its differences. So we got one disc here. It's actually some pretty neat artwork. And now it's time to find out who that leg belongs to. Oh, jeez. They're a bit not wearing clothes, are they? At least it's not too inappropriate. And last but not least, in this pile, Sakura Trick. Sakura? Oh, jeez, I'm having trouble thinking how to pronounce things. If I'm not mistaken, people wanted us. Somebody mentioned something about wanting a second season of this, which means somebody at least enjoyed it. The name sounds familiar. Character designs do not strike a bell. Well, let's see. It's Japanese with English subtitles. That's about what I expected. And it's 2 discs. Alright, and then of course there was this stuff, which includes 2 Tony Canyon things and some keyframe animation. I think from the Yuki Yuna is a hero. Oh yes, that's definitely Yuki Yuna is a hero stuff. 1, 2, 3. I'm not sure what these. Was that a 5 or a 6 I just pulled off? That was a 6. Okay. feels like the last of it. Neato. I'll definitely add this to the pile of keyframes that I've received for various anime. Carefully in there now. Those are precious. Now the DVD itself, or rather the Blu-ray DVD case. So this one is a very on its side thing. I think this is where, yeah, I found some sort of thing. Yeah, I guess it was a Denki guy that had the piece of paper thing on the back. Let's see, these are currently flowing every which way, so let's do that. So we can open this. Look on the inside. Thank God she's got clothes on. She almost looked like she didn't. Big postcardy things. There she is in the background like that. This is probably information about her. Names I don't remember. We've got Blu-ray disc, DVD disc, and CD3. Nice. Episode 11, and I do believe that says final episode. I don't remember if this is region A or region free. I don't see anything here about it. But that's Yuki Yuna is a hero. And as you can see, I removed it from its plastic, so I have not prioritized watching it just yet, but it's probably up there. And now Pony Canyon's next release, Cute High Earth Defense Club. Defending the Earth while high. Or not. I guess that's right. This was dubbed, wasn't it? Audio, English, Japanese. Yeah, apparently so. Because it occurred to me that it makes sense to check that for this one. Let's see. I started the plastic. I can feel I started it. So, looking at the back here, we have Japanese with English subtitles. No different on the DVD side, of course. 4 episodes. This one is like Denki guy with a different back. See, I don't know much about what this anime is about, but that does make it a curiosity. Actually, this really makes the curiosity. Are they magical girls? But as guys. This could be opened up, but I'm not going to open that, I guess. I'm feeling a bit lazy. Looks like posters. This actually makes me really want to watch this. Well, this one doesn't. I'm a bit indifferent to the undressed guys, but the whole, it looks like magical boy anime. That actually has me very curious. I doubt it'll be messed up like, is this a zombie? But let's see, I guess I see that says Blu-ray. I see that says DVD, and here we have, it's usually CD. I see it says Special CD 01. I see opening theme on there, so it at least includes some of the vital sounds. Alright. It's actually a pretty sweet update, in my opinion. I mean, it's small, but it's nice. Here's this week's anime DVD collection update. So I finished the last couple episodes of 1 Week Friends. Let's see. I guess I was complaining a lot about the fake illness sort of thing from last week, and it kind of also made it seem very unrealistic once we kind of understand the full ramifications of it. So obviously 1 Week Friends is not the kind of anime that you necessarily watch for things like that. It would have been nice if it was like magical or cursed or something, you know, something supernatural like that, where it's like, okay, it's not some weird contrived thing like the quantum mechanic workings in the universe just happened to, or something. I don't know. That part was disappointing. The relationship, I felt a lot of anxiety watching it, I guess. It's related to the whole, oh, what is this weird feeling I'm feeling when I see that person interacting with the other gender and blah, blah, blah. You know, I mentioned the lack of introspection stuff, so I'm repeating myself a bit. Because I guess I'm trying to summarize the anime in that I really liked the character designs, I really liked the calmness, the interactions, you know, it was kind of heartwarming, but the other elements of it kind of made me want to put off watching it, and anxious, and a bit losing my suspension of disbelief to a certain degree. So there's that, but it was otherwise a pretty good show. Now, I kept that one brief because I would just be repeating myself from last week, so instead let's talk about the new stuff. I finished, obviously, watching Soul Eater Not, and it was pretty entertaining. There's a little bit of a mix going on there. First of all, they introduce one of the characters who has a compulsive memory loss sort of problem, which, when you just got done with an anime where you were annoyed by the fake memory loss, having another one that's even more extreme but less convenient is, well, while it was simultaneously funny and I don't know, head face palmy, just because sometimes you don't want to watch two things back to back that kind of mix in that weird way. And it's not a central theme to this. Again, it's just a recurring joke, a continuous recurring joke. But yeah, that aside, I actually thought it was pretty enjoyable. It felt a little weird, like there's a balance point between taking new characters and mixing them too much in the universe itself. Like, the characters we're familiar with from the first Soul Eater are present, and some of them are more present than others, to the point where it's tricky. It could almost feel like the anime could be holding itself back, and I think this time it kind of balanced a fine line. I thought it all worked out personally, but I could feel that it was kind of overbearingly leaning a little more on the first Soul Eater series than I would have otherwise preferred. But there's, again, you know, it's a fine line. I think there's an element of that works simply because a lot of the faces from that one were major faces at the DWMA. Is that right? Death Weapon Meister Academy? See, I just said it because I've just heard it said over and over again, and I didn't even think if I was saying it right. So that's pretty crazy. Now, that said, the other thing it kind of balances a fine line with is fan serviceness, which I thought it didn't go too overboard, and it doesn't really do anything very blatant. I guess you could say that the appearances of characters that you liked from the first series would also be fan service, because it's a service to the fans. But there is that tradition of referring to fan service in the context of anime as the showing of sexually enticing material, I guess. And this one didn't necessarily do anything too extreme. I mean, there were no panty shots that I can remember, but there were skirts riding up a little higher than you would think, and angles where you're like, well, if I was at a different angle, then I could see it, but whatnot. And you can even kind of feel some of that if you just look up the opening on YouTube or something like that. So that's one of those ones where it could have almost been a little overboard, because really early on in the series they presented a really good concept, but it almost felt like they were trying to keep people on board with the two kinds of fan service: the characters you like from the first series, and the, by the way, these are young girls, they might be kind of attractive or something like that. Anyways, it definitely got better. I mean, basically, I thought it started with a really great premise where, when we watched the original Soul Eater, we kind of got the perspective of that world from a specific angle. And maybe we got certain glimpses into things, but it felt like a weird abstract world where the DWMA was kind of reality, sort of, from the point of view of Soul Eater, and everything else outside of it was something they were protecting or whatnot, but it almost seemed like a very abstract other thing that we didn't think too much about. We just got exposure to from the point of view of the DWMA students. And I mention this because it kind of begins with, these characters are, the entire idea of the Not class, I guess, is these people are pretty much the newest of the new, starting at the academy. So really, Soul Eater, when it interacted with the real world, was the real world from the point of view of DWMA and witches and whatnot. So it was that world's perspective of the real world, whereas this one's almost kind of the other way around, and that was actually a really great way to start the series, I thought. And it felt like that wasn't a very strong theme. There was a very character stuff, slice of life stuff. But, it kind of lost the purpose really quickly after that, which is why I think it felt like it was on this delicate balance between the two kinds of fan services I was mentioning. And eventually it started properly building up the story, which was there from, I think, was it there at the beginning? I'm trying to remember when we first understood the concepts behind it, around what the developing story might be about. And overall, I thought it was actually pretty good. I'm just trying to remember what I was doing. I don't know. Anyways, I enjoyed it. Finally, I started watching My Little Monster, and I actually enjoy it quite a bit so far. I've mentioned that the 1 Week Friends had some aspects to it that made me kind of anxious about the social scenario, because the characters should have been more self-aware, or, basic stuff. So that one maybe is less the kind of slice of life I enjoy. Maybe this is more like it. I mean, there's plenty of others that I've complained about because they like to go overboard with torturing characters, and I just don't find that fun, especially since they tend to be pretty lopsided in their choices. So My Little Monster seems to be completely avoiding a lot of those tropes, and instead just focusing on keeping the characters amusing to watch. Now, I say this as I'm only 5 episodes in, and I'm mentioning this because I'm concerned about the emotional direction some of the characters may start making. And I don't know if I want to talk about that in too much detail, but there's a risk there of the anime easily doing something that would make me roll my eyes and say, okay, I don't care about these characters anymore. And I say this because these two characters are your main characters. They're here on the front. I'm not sure which one's supposed to be the monster now I think about it. I've seen a GIF from this anime before, and it was really hilarious, and maybe I've seen others and just not noticed it, and I'll find out when I watch it. But they're amusing. Okay, so he's a very eccentric individual, and he's just fun when you see him come and go. He has these interesting thoughts he throws at you, and he's just fun. She's a very cold person, but it doesn't feel like she's necessarily unreasonable. It's like, she doesn't think that you're a stupid asshole for asking her to do something. She's like, it's not actually my concern, why should I do it? And that's actually a very reasonable question to ask yourself sometimes, Not necessarily because it means you shouldn't be doing anything, but sometimes it means that you are overextending yourself. And the anime does seem to cover some of those concepts. I think, let's see, I think that's the concept of codependence, which is you feel like it's your obligation to help other people solve all their problems, even if by doing so you are either enabling the problems to happen, or even worse, you're sacrificing your own well-being by doing it. And it's a real tricky concept because it feels like it's kind of a basic emotion to want to help people. But anyways, I'm going on because while she may be cold, she doesn't seem like she's just an irrationally hateful person. In some regards, she reminds me of Daria. If you've ever watched the old MTV cartoon animation, Daria. It's not exactly the same thing. Daria is a very cynical individual. But some of her cynicism kind of breeds similar questioning of things that are done for the sake of being done. And she does it less for cynicism, more because there's a practicality issue at stake. And I can appreciate that. And I think they actually balance each other off pretty well. You got your... She would be what I think comedy acts call your straight man. And he would be... I don't know what they call the person that's the opposite of the straight man. Because he's definitely wild, crazy, and all over the place. And at the same time, she's not a boring straight man. So in that regard, I've been enjoying it so far. I've been enjoying seeing how their relationships develop and how they're going. Because, of course, there's more than just these two. There's also a couple of other people, and what do they all mean? How much perspective of what we understand of these people come from our point of view of the person watching and whatnot. And our characters are aware of this. And so it's been entertaining. But like I said, the last episode ended in a way where it'd be very easy for the next couple episodes to potentially be annoying. So far, similar things along these lines have been handled well. So I'm hoping this anime isn't about to fall down a pitfall of let's just make things uncomfortable, keep things uncomfortable, and just make it an unpleasant thing to get through or something like that. So we'll find out. Beyond that, I guess I really should try to finish watching it. My watching of stuff has been pretty slow lately. I've just been, I guess, distracted. Not even doing anything else, just zombieing out. I mean, I think I slept 14 hours on Saturday. So, not really a whole lot else of note to talk about. I did watch Terminator 5, aka Terminator Genisys. And it was pretty... I felt like, in some regards, it's an interesting reflection on some aspects of the first Terminator, but in others, it's just kind of stupid. It's like, I felt like the actors mostly felt wrong, and Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator felt off a bit, and I'm not entirely sure that was necessarily wrong, because part of the idea here is he's playing a much older T-800 unit, which is actually a really clever way to deal with the fact that, Arnold Schwarzenegger is an aging actor. And you would expect behavioral changes, and I think it might have worked out, but it's really tricky to say because a lot of the actors for the other roles didn't quite feel right. Let's begin with Kyle Reese. In the first Terminator, he's kind of this skin and bones, scamper off. He's kind of like a human rat, sort of, or something like that. Except that, that he legitimately has a real problem that they're trying to deal with. And that kind of felt realistic, because they come from a post-apocalyptic future where... it makes sense that, maybe they'd have to be rationing their meals, and maybe they'd have to be fidgety and hidey instead of what Terminator 5 had, which was basically somebody who looks like he could be a Terminator himself because he's been eating 3,000 calories a day and pumping iron. I mean, he looks good, but I think that's part of the problem I have with it. Where, I mean, it's pretty obvious to me that Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor's actors were chosen because the actors look good. And not necessarily because they were fits for what they were trying to do. And Kyle Reese is the one I go to first, just because he's kind of the first one you meet. And I don't know. It felt weird because that felt like an important part of the first Terminator movie. Now, Sarah Connor's kind of a weird one because they're playing her differently this time. And, well, Mother of Dragons has some of the looks to feel like a Sarah Connor, but there's just one problem. They're trying to portray this one as a more battle-ready one, and Terminator 2 already did that, and it sets certain expectations. Linda Hamilton, you know, she didn't look like this big buff Terminator thing. You know, she looked ripped, like a real ripped person who would be willing to run and fist fight and whatnot, not some showy floorboard, showy stage. I don't know. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of looks more like your showy, muscly guy. And we kind of interpret that as being super strong, but that's not always necessarily the same. You'd be kind of surprised looking at the kind of people who can hold themselves sideways on a flagpole versus the people who go up and then lift 500 pounds or whatever. You know, they're kind of very different things. I think Full Metal Alchemist, and I think maybe especially Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, kind of hinted at this with Armstrong versus Izumi Curtis's husband, whose name I can't think. We might have never even heard of it. But, you know, they kind of established two different kinds of strongman things, where Armstrong kind of shows the bodybuilder version of strong-looking guy, whereas Izumi Curtis has a lot of core. So he kind of looks overweight, except it looks like his stomach is actually made out of iron or something like that. And I think you tend to see that more in people who are lifting some of the heaviest stuff as opposed to people who are trying to show off the muscles of the body. And there's another element of that, which is, you know, somebody who looks like they're ready to survive. They're doing fucking pull-ups and they're running, and, you know, Linda Hamilton nailed it in Terminator 2. I mean, she just looks like she could tear you apart. She looks great. And that's the problem with Terminator 5, is that's the expectation set for a combat-ready Sarah Connor. And I just don't think Mother of Dragons can do that. And then, of course, there's the whole, what did you expect to be a damsel in distress? You know, the entire point of the first Terminator wasn't that Sarah Connor was a damsel in distress. The entire point of it was that anybody from there was in deep shit if the Terminator was going after them. And they just happened, that they set up a guy and a girl thing. You know, Kyle Reese wasn't like this super more tougher than her per se thing. He, you know, because again, he wasn't this giant muscly Terminator versus Terminator thing. I don't know. It's babbling. So there's problems with the movie. There's things about it that were definitely neat. I don't know how I feel about some of the subtle mannerisms of the T-1000 that was in it, but most of it was really fucking awesome. And I guess I didn't mind John Connor too much. Like the choice of him, it's strange, but it's there. I mean, it didn't feel like he was there to have his shirt taken off and be a poster boy or something like that. Playgirl model on the cover or something like that. Next to the Playboy model cover or whatnot. It's a lot to babble about. So, overall, some interesting direction in there, and then some things that I thought did not make any sense at all and were very convenient. And I guess in some regards it's not too different from Terminator 4, but like I said, I think a week or two ago about Terminator Salvation, is at least with that one, you kind of feel like at its core, there's actually a very interesting concept there. Even if the execution wasn't perfect, you can kind of accept it for its flaws just because some of it is neat. Like a really clever YouTube video that got padded out, and it could be padded out, and was placed in the Terminator universe, and could be placed in the Terminator universe. You know, Terminator 4 I thought worked out. Going back and looking at some scenes from Terminator 3, it feels like 3 and 5 are kind of along the same line of, they don't feel themed, I guess. It feels like Terminator, you can kind of feel an idea omnipresent to that. Terminator 2, you can kind of feel actually a couple themes, and that's probably what makes Terminator 2 so great. I mean, Terminator 2 not only has this concept of whether or not you can change fate and worry for the future, but there's this it's not explicitly explained, but there's this feeling of old technology versus new technology going on with the Terminator, the T-800 and T-1000 in that one. And, you know, because I didn't have to state it, that it was just kind of the way the movie works. You know, there's similarities, but then there's differences. Like, you just can't handle this versus that, and I don't know. Oh well, it's not like any franchise has to stay perfectly functioning, and I've probably talked a little bit more about this than I originally intended. So, I'll go ahead and end this here. Y'all, have a nice week.